Hello, it's Abith here. Today I was cleaning and I came across my MRI and my x-rays and stuff from my long story with my hip, my right hip in particular. And I remember this freaked me out when I got the I don't know. I don't even really want to look at it too closely. But when I got the report back and I started reading all the things that were wrong with me, and it was like, I remember just feeling like, well, it's my bones. So like my bones are in this position. If my bones are, doing this, then it's hopeless. I bawled my eyes out. I felt like I was in the deepest, darkest ditch ever and there was no way out. And I remember just this complete and utter feeling of, and now what, And because, I went and saw at the time, this was over many years, it would like go see somebody, get by and then go see somebody and then kind of get by and then go see somebody. There was a time where like I'd see a chiropractor regularly and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then when things really got pretty non-livable was when I saw like the four supposed best hip orthopedic doctors in Lisbon, and it was not a very shiny, happy diagnosis and prognosis that any of them gave me. And when, I was reading like, I was expecting one thing on the report that the doctor had already kind of referred to. And then it was like another 2 or 3 things that were wrong with me and that were wrong with my bones, and my bones were in the wrong positions and they were too close here and there was the angle here and blah, 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 and the angles. Yeah. At the time, I really was still looking at the experts to have the answers for me. I still didn't really have a real notion of so much of what I know and have experienced and feel in my bones today. Like, how connected the body is in terms of movement, how when they take an MRI or if they take an x-ray, it's just a picture of that moment, what's happening, how the bones are relating to each other depending on so many different things, not just on a structural problem that the doctors couldn't even explain to me why it was happening. Oh, well, this is... You're probably born like this, and with use, it got worse. Like, they didn't really know. They were, making up some story that kind of made sense, but to me also didn't make sense. It was like, well, if I was born with this dysplasia, hip dysplasia was one of the things they said, but it was called developmental hip dysplasia. I was like, well, if it's developmental hip dysplasia, then I was born with it, or did I develop it? And if I developed it, why? Why did it develop? Why did this thing happen? Why did my body go in the way of, entropy, getting worse? Because, dancing and using it and blah, 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 blah. Well, God, there's so many things to say. But first of all, thank God that my body spoke louder than the doctors and said to me, what they're saying is not true for you. Like, what they're telling you that is going to happen and will have to happen is not your truth. There is another way for you. And yeah. I started learning at that point to connect more with my body. I just don't like the word. It's like body. This is the body that my personality lives in. And this body, feeling it, like being aware, starting to recognize what's happening inside in the way that it's relating to the environment, my personality getting a chance to witness, to start to witness, to have consciousness, to have awareness of the magic that's in the body. And so thank goodness, like, this wasn't the end of the story, because a lot of people go down this road, and you maybe go and do surgery, which was what was told that would have to happen to me, hip replacement surgery, when it got worse. So that was the prognosis. It's going to get worse. We don't know how fast. We don't know when you're going to need the hip replacement, but you will need it. So when it's really unbearable, come back and we'll do a hip replacement. And then when it's unbearable on the other hip, we'll do a hip replacement there. So I was looking at like, oh, great. This is my life now. And no, that actually is very far from my life. But so many people go down this road where they looking for the answers outside. Somebody else knows, somebody else can tell you what's wrong with you, what to do, what the path is, etc., etc. And not realizing that these tests that are done, these x-rays, these MRIs, they're pictures of a moment. There's no movie of how that got there and where it's going, because it's just a moment in time. And what is the story of that moment in time? They don't know. Like, you really need to be able to look back and see, what are all the injuries that have happened to my body that have made my body adapt to a new center, so that now these joints are closing here instead of having the space that they were born to have. Joints are moving based on your relationship to your mass and gravity. And anything that happens to you, like, something happens to you here, well, that's changed your whole center of mass. That's closing up joints. So you go and get an MRI, for example. Well, you're going to get an MRI where you're off balance, because that's what your joints have done, because soft tissue is now compressing itself in a place that can help you deal with your center of mass and gravity. I mean, this is just part of the story, because it could be a variety of things. It could be something emotional that you lived through that made you compress in on yourself. I knew somebody who, and I think this happened to a lot of girls, whose boobs grew early, like got big boobs early. And so they adapted like this kind of posture of trying to hide it because they were ashamed. Or others who, like me, who didn't have any boobs, who adapted this posture to try to show whatever I had. So my back got super closed up, and my rhomboids and my trapezius, and that was part of the story for me. Not the only, there were other reasons. But the thing is that what your body looks like at this moment, it's just a picture. Take a picture each day, you're going to look different. So when you take an x-ray, take one tomorrow, take one the next day, it might look kind of different, because your bones are settling into where the soft tissue is allowing them to be, based on how they are moving in gravity and forward motion, or static motion of sitting. So the way that your use of them, like F.M. Alexander from the Alexander technique, he called it the use of the self. So the use of the self based on so many things, based on the psychosocial, mental way that you're relating to the world. So peeling the onion and finding that is not, for me, it hasn't been this kind of thing. It started with a little voice inside that said, that hip surgery is not for you. There's another way. It's not going to be easy, but it's the way for you. And the real sense that my body could heal itself. I don't know where that came from. It's just somewhere inside the body can heal itself. And it's been a long journey. There were certain things that I did. I'm not going to get into details on this video, but certain things that I did, and particularly with the changing of the narrative around my hip, some things started to look and feel better right away. But not like, 100% or anything, but there was a difference, there was a change. And then it was like slow progression, slow changes. Well, I've kind of been on that happened, I guess, in 2018 was when I was seeing all the doctors and being told that hip replacement surgery was my future. And so until today, 2018, 2019. And so to 20, 21, 22, 23, like 5 years. So 5 years later, I'm much better. I'm moving much better. But I've still got restrictions. I've still got places where the body is too afraid to go, that I'm only really getting the light shown on now, because this body was like, okay, next part of the journey. We've been at this plateau for a while. Time to get a little bit freer, time to get a little bit more efficient, time to get a little bit more full of ease. And now I'm in this push to deal with a lot of stuff that was below the surface. And I felt to share about it. I don't know if the details are going to come out. It feels like they're not yet there to come out. But, how did it start? Well, after having a few things, it was like after having a year and a half or so where I was dealing with a tooth and a jaw issue. I had jaw osteolysis. I had the tooth with, what they would call an abscess and blah, 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 blah. And then taken out, half of it taken out, then the other half taken out. And then, it was a long drawn out process. I had lockjaw. I had, if I had been to the doctors about certain things, they would have been diagnosed cancer probably. I had some certain things going on here that created a lot of tension and a lot of gunk stuckness that was happening, all in this area. So there was that was kind of not cleaned up properly, right? And I knew because my jaw has not been tracking well and, this kind of thing. And so that was just always there buzzing like, gonna need to go there at some point. And then it was something around my lower abdomen and my lumbar. And a little bit in the hip. It was like the old pain, but just this kind of like feeling of rigidity, a little bit of edema, a little bit of like, okay, it's a healing process going on there. What is happening? Not feeling like, for a while, not feeling like I could really fully commit to certain movements there. Always a little bit like hesitant for a number of reasons. One is that I never fully got the confidence to weight bear completely on my right side. So I've been off balance now for a while. It was due to all the pain, but I think it was due to other things. One thing is hitting my head and having this scar, hitting my head at age 4, having a concussion. And that affected my cervical spine that I never really realized until now. And so that little by little, the layers are dealing with those layers, getting them off, and also affected my center. So around my navel. I'm not going to get into too many details, like I said, but that's something that is kind of the layers of the onion are slowly getting peeled off. So it was first starting with that recognition of, okay, something needs to be dealt with here, something needs to be dealt with my lower abdomen and my lumbar spine, and my hands just started moving. I've done courses in massage and myofascial and craniosacral and abdominal massage Chinetsang and other things. So there's awareness that grew there, and also in just working with my body, teaching movement. And so, yeah, there was some skill that I had learned. And so my hands just started working. And little did I know how deep this was going to go. Yes, it's been, it is quite a journey that's happening right now. And lately, I'm skipping a lot. But lately, and hopefully I'll go back. I feel like it'd be nice to share, because I think we don't always hear, these things. We hear about somebody going to the doctor, getting a surgery, boom, or whatever. Those are the stories. But anyway, so weight bearing on my right side, that's what I'm dealing with right now, is relearning how to walk. Like my body teaching itself again how to hold the spine, but how to move the different pieces in opposition from the foot all the way up to the head, right? And the main tool that I'm using at the moment was something that I had come across a few years ago. I had bought this guy's book. I had bought a couple of courses. I had never really delved into them that much, kind of like stayed on the surface of it. It was always there, like, I'll go back, I'm not sure when. And I can see how I wasn't really ready for it at the time, because it is breaking down, like breaking apart, the line 3 anarchy, throw it out kind of thing of a lot of stuff that I have done and taught around movement. So I'm dealing with a lot of like, oh, wow, I've really done a lot of like forcing myself, controlling things, like putting movement in my body that creates control and creates, in effect, brakes on movement. And so what am I delving into at the moment is the work of Gary Ward from Anatomy in Motion, and the model, his flow motion model, that is about how the body moves in gait from the foot, from all the joints, starting down at the foot up to the upper body. And it's beautiful. And skipping details again, I'm just going to go to one thing that was like, and happened to me right now also. So I've always been told that I have a pronated foot, particularly my left one. My right one, not as much, but I have pronated feet. I have flat feet, right? That's a problem. So there's always been this thing in me of like, oh, well, then I'm going to try to keep my feet in a position that's kind of, I'm not going to let myself go there. So this is where like the breaking apart of my foundations that I was taught and that I was teaching, I'm watching them go bye-bye or mutating a little bit. So in doing a couple of starting on the movements that Gary Ward teaches to pronate. If you have a pronated foot, you need to pronate. You need to learn to pronate. If you have a supinated foot, you need to learn to pronate. Basically, your foot needs to go into pronation and out of it, in and supinate, pronate and supinate. And it's not this movement that we were always taught. It's this movement. Okay, so it's completely different. When I was using so he's got these wedges that he uses to teach the feet, to give feedback to the feet of where you need to keep your tripod. And my foot, my 2 feet, there was a certain way of putting the wedges that when they got to pronate, really, like actively pronate and then come out of it for the first time, I cried. It was like my body was like, I've been wanting that movement. I'm crying. I'm getting emotional now. I've been wanting that movement. And you haven't let me go there. And the changes up the chain yeah, wow. It's taking time because I'm seeing now how much control I had put into the body. Don't go there. Don't do that. That's painful there. And it's just about like, a couple of things. When you have had pain, you put control in the body to not go to the places of pain. So yeah, not really go to my right foot that much. Not let myself, let my knee track over my first toe. Not let myself go into pronation. Not let, this rotation happen in my right hip. Not let, all this stuff. So many things. And then when you start to take the brakes off and let the body relearn what its natural movement is, wow. So like the neck is getting freer. I've also been doing a lot of work on my neck to get this tissue to unstick because it was so like just holding my neck. All the stress from the last decades. And I mean, I'm watching my spine settle back into a more centered place from the work I've been doing manually on the fascia and from the balancing of Gary Ward's Finding Center and a couple other things that I've been delving into, but his work is the one that I've mostly been focusing on the last weeks. And today I could feel on my right leg, I could feel the supination keeping the tripod for like the first time with my toes relaxed without them gripping. And my hip rotated in to place without the resistance pain, without that like, let me go there. And then I just burst into tears. Because it was like, wow, here's a movement that I've not allowed myself to have. What I love about the way that the vision that Gary Ward has in Anatomy in Motion is, he's talking about the body letting it have its unconscious, letting it make its changes on an unconscious level. So putting input into the body, letting the body have the input that is original, going back to the original blueprint, letting the body taste that again, and then the body itself makes its decisions of where center is going to be now. The body itself is centering itself, so you stop doing so much conscious control over everything. And this fits so perfectly into what my process has been the last years of bowing down to the body and releasing control. So these conscious controls that I see that I've put on my joints, in defense, it's not like a blame or thing. It's just it is in defense and because I was taught to, right? Because this is what you're taught to do in Pilates and fitness and whatever. Ripping them up, throwing them away. Body has an original blueprint. It formed itself from its original blueprint. It formed itself after birth, developed itself without this conscious personality mind deciding every step of the way. The body taught itself how to get up straight, how to sit, how to crawl, how to walk. All of those movements that happened in the joints over time were all for the objective of walking with ease and running, right? So this is the fundamental movement blueprint in the body that it knows how to do, because every movement up till then that it did of, getting the head in the right place, and then, the spine forming in a way that it would be head on top of thorax, on top of pelvis. All these things are just unconscious body intelligence forming and developing itself to be present in the world in the most energy efficient, easeful way possible. And this recognition that I've had in my different ways over the last years is mirrored in this work of Finding Center, Anatomy and Motion from Gary Ward. And so it blends so perfectly with what my body has really been wanting, which is for me to leave it alone. And the phrase that keeps coming to mind is this phrase that I heard the poet David Whyte say once. And he was putting in context of things that John O'Donohue, a poet philosopher who has some beautiful books that I love, used to talk about. And he said, leave yourself to be yourself. Just leave yourself alone. Leave yourself to be yourself. And that's what I hear my body telling me. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Let me be. Let me be. Let me be what I am. Let me live my life. And you watch. And you, little personality, you watch. Because I'm going to give you a very interesting life, but I'm going to give you my life. So the body is saying, I got my life. And my life is meant to be in ease and in extreme energy efficiency because I've got a projector life. I've got a passive projector, no energy life, which means energy efficiency. What the world might call laziness is actually, let's find the most efficient way to use the energy we've got in the most ease, in the most coolness. I'm cool. I'm not emotional. Cool. So it's like the body just constantly saying, leave me alone. Leave yourself to be yourself. And I remember to have a quote here on the wall from John O'Donohue. He says, real simplicity is about the lyrical innocence of allowing yourself to be, so that the immensity that you carry can actually become in the way it wants to become. It's an unconscious thing. Like the flowering of your life is an unconscious thing that consciously you get to witness. But the true flowering of your unique life, of my unique life, the true flowering of my unique life is unconscious. It's only witnessed consciously. Now, you can have your conscious dreams that you go after and stuff like that, but that's not necessarily your unique life. Because anything that comes from the conscious personality mind will be attached to homogenized thinking. You can't get away from it. That's what the mind is tuned into. The mind is tuned into all the stories of the whole collective. Unique life is lived on an unconscious, natural level that is guided every step of the way by body intelligence. The same body intelligence that said, okay, sperm and egg, it's your turn. We're going to make something. And then began to divide itself and fold in on itself and create different germ layers. And from the different germ layers, the different organs and all the intricacy of how the systems move throughout the body, and the nervous system connecting it all, the fascial system connecting all, the blood and the lymph system moving through all of it. The flow that only really works when the body's articulations, the joints are aligned in a way that's easeful and efficient. And the body has this blueprint of how it wants to move within itself and within the world. The blueprint is there. And this thing getting out of the way invites the blueprint to flower.